For 24 years, Josef Fritzl imprisoned his daughter in a soundproof cellar and fathered 7 children with her, all born in that underground dungeon. This crime shocked Austria and the entire world because it happened not in a remote hideout, but in Amstetten, a city of 24,000 people with schools, supermarkets, and passing trains. Right beneath an ordinary family home, a young woman was held captive by her own father. 3 of her children never saw daylight. The others were secretly brought upstairs as infants, their origins hidden behind forged letters and silence. This wasn't the act of a spontaneous monster. It was the result of decades of lies, a hidden criminal past, and a justice system that forgot him. Stay tuned, because what you're about to hear is the full, meticulously documented truth behind the Fritzl case, as it really happened. Who was Josef Fritzl? Josef Fritzl was born on April 9, 1935, in Amstetten, Lower Austria. His early life offered few signs of the monster he would become, but his criminal record told a different story. In 1954, at age 19, he was convicted of sexual assault and served 18 months. Then, in October 1967, he committed a far more violent crime. He broke into a young mother's apartment in Linz, threatened her with a knife, and raped her. She reported him immediately. He was convicted and sentenced to 18 months in prison. Years later, in 2008, that same woman saw his face on TV and said, "These eyes, I knew it was him." But by the time Elisabeth disappeared in 1984, Austrian law had erased that conviction from public records. Police saw no red flags, only a concerned father. To the world, Fritzl was a quiet engineer. In truth, he was a repeat sexual predator who knew the system would forget him. So he built a prison where no one could hear her scream. His wife, Rosemarie Fritzl. In the early 1950s, Josef met Rosemarie Walser, a quiet, devout Catholic woman from a small village near Amstetten. They married in 1956 and had 7 children together. By all accounts, Rosemarie was a traditional housewife, deeply religious, obedient, and trusting. Neighbors described the Fritzls as a normal family. They went to church, they celebrated birthdays, they even took family vacations. But behind that image, Rosemarie lived in fear. Friends later revealed she once confided that Josef was cold and controlling. She said he punished the children harshly, locking them in closets for hours. Yet she never suspected the true depth of his depravity, not until it was far too late. The captivity begins. In 1984, their eldest daughter, Elisabeth Fritzl, was just 18 years old. She had begun questioning her father's authority, even joining a religious commune that Josef despised. On August 28, 1984, Elisabeth vanished. Josef told police and his wife that Elisabeth had run away, possibly to join a cult. He even showed them a handwritten letter supposedly from Elisabeth, claiming she'd left voluntarily and didn't want contact with her family. What no one knew. That very day, Josef had lured her into the basement under a simple pretext, asking for help carrying boxes. The moment she stepped inside, he locked the steel door behind her, and she would not see the outside world again for 24 years. This wasn't just a cellar. It was a sophisticated prison hidden behind 5 basement rooms. To reach it, you had to walk through a narrow corridor and past 2 massive steel doors, each weighing over 300 kilograms, filled with concrete and locked by a remote-controlled numeric code only Josef knew. Behind those doors lay 60 square meters of soundproof space, divided into a kitchenette, a bathroom with a shower and toilet, 2 small bedrooms with bunk beds, a storage room stocked with a freezer, refrigerator, and months' worth of food, and even a lounge area with a TV, radio, and washing machine. The ceiling was low, just 1.7 meters, and the floors were uneven, forcing the captives to crouch or sit for long periods. Josef had finished building this prison in 1983, a full year before he imprisoned Elisabeth. He forbade anyone, including his wife, from entering the workshop where it was hidden. He later claimed the doors could be opened from the inside in an emergency. But investigators found no tools, no escape mechanism, and he told Elisabeth a chilling lie to ensure her silence. "If anything happens to me, gas will flood the room." Authorities searched the entire system. No gas lines were ever found. It was pure psychological terror. And then, the abuse began. Life in the dungeon. For the next 24 years, Elisabeth was held captive in that 18-square-meter cellar. Josef visited her regularly, sometimes multiple times a day, subjecting her to repeated sexual violence. She became pregnant 7 times, each pregnancy the result of years of abuse by her own father. Of those 7 children, 1 infant died shortly after birth in 1996. Suffering from respiratory failure and with no access to medical care, the baby could not be saved. Josef later admitted he disposed of the body in a furnace in the basement. This death became the basis for the charge of murder at his trial. The other 6 children survived. After 3 of Elisabeth's births, Josef carried the newborn upstairs. He placed the baby in a laundry basket or cardboard box, left it on the doorstep of his own home, and rang the bell. When his wife Rosemary opened the door, she found a crying infant with a forged note, supposedly from Elisabeth, saying she couldn't care for the child and begged her parents to raise the baby as their own. Heartbroken but trusting, Rosemary took each child in. 3 children, Lisa, Monica, and Alexander, were raised as the abandoned children of their missing sister, Elisabeth. They believed Elisabeth was their mother and that she had left them behind. And the man they called grandfather was actually their biological father. The other 3 children, Kirsten, Stefan, and Felix, never left the cellar. They grew up in total isolation, their existence known only to Josef and Elisabeth, until the day Kirsten fell gravely ill, and the truth could no longer be hidden. How did no one notice? This is the question that haunted Austria after the truth came out. How could Josef Fritzl imprison his daughter for 24 years, right under the roof of an ordinary family home, and no one intervene? The answer lies not in one failure, but in many. First, the law itself erased his past. After Fritzl was convicted in 1967 for the rape in Linz and served his 18-month sentence, Austrian law sealed his criminal record under the 1972 Expungement Act. By the time Elisabeth vanished in 1984, police had no legal access to his file. To them, he was just a concerned father reporting a missing daughter. Second, his neighbors stayed silent. As one Amstetten resident admitted to Spiegel, "It was known in certain circles that Sepp had been in prison, but people just didn't talk about it." In this big village, rumors existed, but no one acted. Third, Fritzl controlled every detail. He built the dungeon during a home renovation in the early 1980s, calling it a bomb shelter. He installed 2 300-kilogram steel doors, locked by a remote-controlled code. He forbade his wife from entering the basement workshop, and she obeyed. And finally, society looked away. When Elisabeth briefly ran away twice as a teenager, before her final disappearance, authorities treated it as a typical case of a rebellious girl. No one asked why a father would build a high-security cellar. No one questioned the forged letters from Elisabeth. No one connected the dots. The horror wasn't hidden in a remote forest. It was hidden in plain sight, behind a culture of silence, legal loopholes, and the quiet assumption that people like him couldn't possibly be monsters. The discovery. The truth finally surfaced on April 19, 2008, because of a medical emergency. Kirsten, then 19, fell seriously ill in the dungeon. Elisabeth begged Josef to take her to a hospital. Reluctantly, he agreed, but only after sedating her and wrapping her in blankets to avoid suspicion. At the hospital, doctors were alarmed. Kirsten was severely dehydrated, malnourished, and suffering from kidney failure. They couldn't understand how a young woman could be in such condition unless she'd been isolated for years. Suspicious, they contacted authorities. When police questioned Josef, his story unraveled. Under pressure, he finally confessed. She's in the cellar. Officers rushed to the Fritzl home. Behind a heavy steel door, hidden behind shelves of wine and canned food, they found Elisabeth and her two youngest children, pale, thin, and terrified. They hadn't seen daylight in decades. Global shock and media frenzy. Within 24 hours, the story exploded worldwide. BBC, CNN, The New York Times, Le Monde, Der Spiegel. Every major outlet ran a front-page coverage. Headlines called it The House of Horrors, Austrian Nightmare, and The Cellar of Secrets. In Japan, newspapers published special editions. In Brazil, TV networks interrupted regular programming. Even in remote villages in India, people gathered around radios to hear updates. Psychologists and criminologists were stunned. Dr. Michael Stone, a forensic psychiatrist from Columbia University, said, "This isn't just criminal behavior. It's a textbook case of extreme sadism fused with total control." Fritzl didn't just imprison his daughter, he created his own twisted world. The case sparked global debates. How do we protect the vulnerable? Why do we ignore warning signs? And can evil truly wear a neighbor's face? Arrest and trial. Josef Fritzl was arrested the same day. During interrogation, he showed no remorse. He claimed Elisabeth wanted it, a lie immediately disproven by medical evidence and her testimony. In March 2009, after a highly publicized trial, he was found guilty of murder for the death of the newborn in 1996, whose body he burned, rape, incest, false imprisonment, enslavement, and coercion. He received the maximum sentence under Austrian law, life imprisonment in a secure psychiatric unit with no chance of parole. His wife, Rose Marie, suffered a nervous breakdown. She later said she felt betrayed by the man I shared my life with for 50 years. She moved away, seeking anonymity. She passed away in 2022. Where are they now? After their rescue in 2008, Elisabeth and her children received years of intensive care, psychological therapy, medical support, and 24/7 protection in a secure location. For a long time, they were unable to function in everyday life. The children had never seen the sun, heard birds, or walked on grass. But over time, with immense courage, they began to heal. Today, they live independently in a quiet, undisclosed part of Austria. They have their own home, adapted to their needs, surrounded by nature, with gardens and space to feel safe. While they still receive regular therapeutic support, they no longer live under constant supervision. Elisabeth has never spoken publicly, and Austrian authorities have ensured it stays that way. Her privacy is protected by law because her story isn't a spectacle. It's a testament to survival, quiet, dignified, and ongoing. The fight for release, dementia, and legal battles. But the story didn't end in 2009. In late 2023, Josef Fritzl's defense lawyer filed a shocking motion. She requested his early release from the psychiatric prison. Why? Because at age 88, Fritzl is now suffering from advanced dementia. Medical reports state he can barely remember his own name, let alone the crimes he committed. He spends his days in a wheelchair, staring blankly at walls, unable to hold a conversation. His lawyer argued he is no longer a danger to society. He poses zero risk. Keeping him in prison serves no purpose. It's punishment without awareness. The request sparked outrage across Austria and beyond. Victims' rights groups called it a betrayal of justice. The Austrian Justice Ministry responded firmly, "His sentence stands." Dementia does not erase what he did. As of mid-2024, Fritzl remains behind bars, but the legal battle continues. raising difficult ethical questions. Should a monster be freed if he no longer remembers being one? Final thoughts. The Fritzl case is not just about one monster. It's about how evil hides in plain sight, behind lawns, picket fences, and polite smiles. It's about the failure of systems that should protect the vulnerable. And most of all, it's about resilience, the unimaginable strength of a mother who protected her children in hell, and the long, silent road to healing that continues far from the cameras. If there's one lesson here, it's this: never assume silence means safety. Sometimes the darkest secrets are buried just beneath the surface of ordinary life. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative and respectful, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more carefully researched true crime stories. And remember, true crime isn't just about the criminals, it's about honoring the victims by telling their stories with truth, dignity, and care. Stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.